There are people who move through the world as if carrying a quiet room inside them, a room no one else can enter, a room where the noise fades, the expectations loosen, and the self becomes clear again. Solitude, for them, isn't an escape from life. It's the place where life finally makes sense. They are not avoiding connection. They are simply remembering themselves. Some learn to find safety in silence because the world once felt too loud. Some discovered that solitude reveals truths that crowds often bury, and some just feel more honest when no one is watching. This documentary explores the psychology behind those who feel most at home in their own company, not as loneliness, but as a sanctuary where the mind breathes, the heart softens, and the self quietly returns to itself. Before people learn the language of solitude, they feel it, not as a choice, not as a personality trait, but as a soft internal pull toward quiet spaces long before they know what that pull means. For many, it begins in childhood, those small pauses between activities when a child drifts away from the group without realizing it. While others chase noise and attention, some children find themselves lingering at the edges, absorbed in a book, a corner of the room, or the patterns of their own thoughts. Adults may call it shyness, introversion, or simply being quiet, but inside the child, something else is happening. A sense of inner stillness is awakening, a recognition that being alone doesn't feel empty. It feels clear. They don't yet think of it as solitude. They don't have the words for emotional boundaries or mental breathing room. They just know that the world sometimes presses too close, and stepping back feels like easing into warm water. Being alone feels clean, like brushing dust from a window and seeing the view again. For others, the recognition arrives later, often in adolescence. When social groups become louder, expectations grow heavier, and the self becomes something fragile that can be knocked out of balance. In these moments, solitude is discovered the way a person discovers a hidden trail, not intentionally, but gratefully. They slip into an empty room, take a long walk home, or sit with music in the dark and realize that something inside them exhales. It is in those moments that they first sense the possibility that being alone might be more than a pause, it might be a sanctuary. This early recognition is subtle but powerful. It doesn't come with dramatic revelations or emotional speeches. It comes in the form of comfort, an instinctive return to an internal home that others rarely see. People who feel safe in solitude often describe it not as the absence of company, but as the presence of something deeper: clarity, freedom, spaciousness. Over time, this feeling becomes familiar, almost like a companion. They begin to notice that in solitude their thoughts settle, their emotions uncoil, their attention sharpens. They hear themselves more clearly, without the echo of others' expectations. They notice the weight that lifts when no one is watching, judging, or interpreting their every movement. The quiet doesn't scare them, it steadies them. For some, recognizing the comfort of solitude brings confusion. Society often treats aloneness with suspicion, as though wanting space means something is wrong. People may ask why they disappear so often, or why they don't enjoy constant company the way others seem to. But these individuals aren't withdrawing out of fear or discomfort. They are returning to a natural state. Their inner quiet is not a wall, it is a resting place. This recognition also carries a hidden intelligence. It teaches them early that emotions can be processed gently, privately, without the pressure to perform or explain. It teaches them that the world does not have to be faced at full volume, and that stepping back is not the same as stepping away. It teaches them that solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is alignment. As the years pass, this inner affinity for quiet becomes woven into their identity. They may not talk about it, they may not even fully understand it yet, but they learn to trust the places where their minds feel most alive. The early morning hours before the world wakes, the soft hum of a room filled only with their own presence, the simple pleasure of being with themselves. Before they know what it means, they have already formed a relationship with solitude. A relationship built not on avoidance, but on recognition, a quiet knowing. Here, in the hush of my own company, I am safe. The need for solitude rarely begins as a preference. It begins as a response. Long before a person realizes they seek quiet, their nervous system has already learned something about the world. Something about noise, pressure, or emotional currents that feel too strong to navigate without retreating. Solitude becomes the first environment where their body feels safe enough to soften. For some, this need forms in households where emotions swell without notice, environments where voices rise quickly, where conflict appears without warning, or where calm is unpredictable. In such spaces, a child learns to find pockets of peace wherever they can, behind a closed door, under blankets, in the quiet corners adults overlook. Their solitude is not dramatic. It is survival in its softest form, a way to create stability inside when the outside feels unstable. For others, the need emerges in homes filled with love but also expectation. Homes where achievement is praised, where responsibility appears early, or where perfection feels like the price of belonging. These children learn to retreat not because they are scared, but because solitude gives them a rare moment where they don't have to earn anything, a moment where they can exhale without performing. Some grow up highly perceptive, sensitive to shifts in tone, to the emotions others hide, to the unspoken tensions that hang in rooms like invisible fog. This sensitivity, often misunderstood, makes the world louder than it seems for most people. Crowds feel overwhelming. Social dynamics feel like puzzles with too many moving parts. Solitude, by contrast, feels simple, predictable, gentle. In these early environments, solitude becomes more than silence. It becomes regulation, a way to settle a heart that beats too quickly, a way to protect a mind that absorbs too much, a way to give shape to emotions that might otherwise spread too wide to understand. Psychologists often note that individuals who seek solitude early in life are not avoiding relationships. They are compensating for environments that demanded too much of them too soon. Solitude becomes the space where they can return to the pace that suits them, a pace slow enough to feel again without being flooded. Other origins are quieter still. Some children grow up in busy households where privacy is rare. Noise is constant. Attention is scattered. In such spaces, finding solitude, even briefly, feels like discovering oxygen. The mind learns to associate aloneness with relief, with focus, with the pleasure of hearing one's own thoughts without interruption. And then there are those whose personalities simply lean inward, the introspective child who watches more than they speak, the dreamer who imagines worlds inside their mind, the observer who studies life with a sensitivity that can't be taught. For them, solitude is not a shield, but a habitat, a place where their inner landscapes feel expansive enough to explore. No matter the origin, the pattern is consistent. Solitude begins as the safest space available, a calm between emotional storms, a shelter from overstimulation, a pause in a world that moves too quickly. As they grow older, the need for solitude takes on new roles. It becomes the place where they recalibrate after social interactions, the place where they untangle complex thoughts, the place where they practice being honest with themselves without fear of judgment. What started as a response in childhood becomes a rhythm in adulthood, a cycle of stepping out and stepping back in. But this origin also creates an internal paradox. Because solitude once protected them, they develop a bond with it stronger than most people understand. They feel safer in quiet because quiet is where they first learned who they were. Behind every person who seeks solitude is a history of moments that shaped their sensitivity, their emotional endurance, and their threshold for noise. Their need for solitude is not a flaw nor a barrier. It is a story, one written slowly in the background of their early life, teaching them the profound truth that sometimes the mind heals best in the spaces the world overlooks. Some minds don't just enjoy silence, they require it. Inside these individuals, the brain holds a different rhythm, slower in some ways, deeper in others, shaped by patterns of processing that make solitude feel less like a choice and more like a biological alignment. Silence is not an empty space for them. It is oxygen, it is balance, it is restoration. At a neurological level, these people often possess heightened sensitivity. Their brains register subtle changes in emotion, tone, and environment with remarkable accuracy. They notice the tremor beneath someone's voice, the tension inside a room, the unspoken meanings tucked between words. While this sensitivity is a quiet strength, it comes with a cost: overstimulation. Their nervous system absorbs too much, too quickly, leaving them drained by constant interaction. Solitude counteracts this. It becomes a space where neural circuits untangle and cortisol levels fall. Without the pressure of monitoring social cues or managing emotional currents, their mind finally settles into its natural pace. Steady, observant, introspective. Research shows that inward-focused individuals spend more time in what psychologists call the default mode network, a part of the brain that activates during self-reflection, imagination, and emotional processing. This network thrives in quiet. It awakens when the world dims. It becomes clearer when the person is alone. In solitude, their mind doesn't shut off. It opens. It reorganizes experiences, connects distant memories, and revisits unresolved feelings in a way that feels instinctively right. This is why solitude often feels more productive, more honest, and even more alive to them than social interaction. Their brain is built to wander gently through thoughts, to analyze without pressure, to dream without interruption. Silence becomes the environment where this inner architecture functions best. Another part of the story lies in emotional empathy. Many solitude-seeking individuals naturally absorb the moods of others, experiencing a mirrored version of what people around them feel. It is not something they choose. It is something their brain does automatically. While empathy is a profound gift, it also means crowded spaces and constant social exposure can quickly overwhelm their emotional bandwidth. Alone, that bandwidth resets, emotional boundaries return, the self becomes distinct again. There is also the matter of cognitive depth. People who feel safe in solitude often process information vertically rather than horizontally. They prefer going deep into one idea rather than skimming across many. They dissect, observe, and reflect. Silence creates the conditions for this depth to unfold without interruption. Their thoughts bloom more fully when they are not competing with external noise. And then there is attention, fragile, sensitive, easily scattered by overstimulation. In solitude, attention gathers like still water. Focus sharpens. The mind becomes capable of immersing itself fully into creative pursuits, complex problems, or introspective journeys. What looks like being alone from the outside is, on the inside, a state of mental clarity that is rare, concentrated, and deeply fulfilling. Even the body responds to solitude. Heart rate slows, breath deepens, muscles release the tension held unconsciously throughout the day. The nervous system shifts from survival to rest. It is as if the body says, "Here, in this quiet, you can return to yourself." This is the neurological truth. Some brains breathe better in silence. They are not afraid of noise. They are simply built for depth. They are not rejecting others. They are regulating themselves. They are not withdrawing. They are recalibrating. Solitude is not a barrier. It is maintenance. A way for the mind to keep its clarity, its sensitivity, its inner coherence. In the silence, their brain is not empty, it is alive. It is listening. It is finding its way back to balance, one quiet moment at a time. There is a quiet contradiction that lives inside people who feel safe in solitude, a tension between two truths that seem impossible to hold at the same time, the desire to be alone and the desire to be understood. They crave space, not as an escape, but as a return. Yet they also long for connection, for warmth, for the soft recognition of being seen without shrinking. This duality creates an internal conflict that is subtle, constant, and often misunderstood. On one side lives the pull toward solitude, the instinctive need to retreat, to recharge, to breathe in an environment free from emotional noise. This need is not about disliking people. It is about recovering from intensity, from overstimulation, from the invisible labor of absorbing so much of the world at once. Solitude gives them clarity. It restores the shape of their thoughts. It brings them back to a version of themselves that feels whole. But on the other side lives an equally human longing, the desire for closeness, intimacy, and companionship that doesn't suffocate or overwhelm. They want connection that feels gentle. They want relationships that allow for silence. They want to be with someone without losing themselves inside the interaction. They want presence without pressure. This is where the conflict deepens. When they spend too much time around others, they begin to feel frayed. Their emotional boundaries blur. Their mind starts to scatter. They feel drained, overstimulated, and often guilty for needing to step away. They worry that pulling back might hurt someone's feelings, or that their silence may be misread as disinterest. People interpret their distance as rejection, when in reality it is self-preservation. Yet when they spend too much time alone, a different ache appears, a soft loneliness. Not loud, not desperate, just a quiet longing to be understood, to be held in someone's awareness, to share the inner world they protect so fiercely. They want closeness, but not the kind that erases them. They want companionship, but not the kind that demands constant presence. They want love, but one that respects rhythm rather than routine. This inner push and pull can feel like walking a narrow bridge between two worlds. In one world they feel overstimulated, in the other they feel unseen. Their heart exists somewhere in between. Many carry guilt for wanting both. They apologize for needing space. They worry their boundaries look like walls. They fear disappointing the people they care about. So they often stay longer than they should in social situations, offering more presence than they have the energy to give, just to avoid the sting of misunderstanding. Others do the opposite. They withdraw too quickly, stay silent too long, afraid that closeness might demand more than they can offer. They protect their inner world so carefully that connection becomes a distant horizon instead of a reachable shore. The conflict is not evidence of indecision, it is evidence of a highly sensitive emotional landscape, one that must balance solitude and connection the way the body balances breath. Inhale, exhale, retreat, return. Quiet, warmth. They want someone who understands that connection doesn't always look like constant conversation. Sometimes it looks like sitting together in silence, each person existing freely within the same gentle space. They want relationships where their solitude is not questioned, but respected, where their need for quiet is not interpreted as rejection, but recognized as a natural rhythm of their mind. And beneath this longing lies a simple truth. They do not want to choose between space and connection. They want a life where both can coexist, where the world allows them to be soft and spacious at the same time, where connection feels like openness, not overwhelm, where solitude feels like grounding, not isolation. This conflict, this dance between retreat and return, is not a flaw. It is the quiet architecture of a sensitive, introspective heart learning how to exist in a world that often demands one or the other. But inside them, both are true. Both are needed. Both are part of the way they love, the way they heal, the way they live. There comes a moment, often quiet, often unnoticed, when solitude stops being a refuge and becomes something much more profound. Not an escape, not a reset, but a lens, a way of seeing. In the beginning, solitude is simply the space where the mind rests after absorbing too much, a gentle buffer from the noise of the world. But over time, something changes inside people who lean into this quiet. The silence becomes less about recovering from life and more about understanding it. This shift is subtle. It happens slowly, like dawn moving across a dark room. One day they sit alone, not because they are tired, but because the quiet feels honest. There is no performance there, no roles to play, no expectations to fulfill. In solitude, thoughts stretch out. Emotions rise without fear of being misunderstood, and the self steps forward, not the version shaped by the world, but the version that has been whispering beneath everything else. This is when clarity begins. In solitude, buried truths surface. They see which relationships nourish them and which ones drain their energy quietly. They recognize the emotions they have been carrying too long. They notice the dreams they silenced for the sake of fitting in. They discover desires that had been muted under responsibility and routine. Without external noise, their inner voice becomes distinct, steady, fully audible. People who feel safe in solitude often describe this as an unveiling, a moment when their thoughts stop competing and begin aligning. They understand their reactions more clearly. They notice patterns in their choices. They see the connections between old experiences and present fears. What once felt complicated suddenly makes sense. This clarity doesn't arrive in loud revelations. It arrives gently, the way a mirror clears when the room cools. They begin to understand the difference between what they want and what they have been conditioned to want. They discern between authentic desire and obligation, between genuine connection and emotional habit. Solitude becomes the compass they never realized they needed. For some, this clarity brings surprising realizations, that they have outgrown certain identities, that they stayed silent in places where they longed to speak, that they carried responsibilities that were never theirs, that they mistook overstimulation for connection, and that their own inner world, once overlooked, holds answers they've been searching for everywhere else. For others, the clarity is softer, a feeling of alignment, a sense that their life begins to move in a direction that finally matches their internal rhythm. In this stage, solitude becomes a teacher, not strict, not demanding, but deeply patient. It teaches them the language of their own emotions. It teaches them how to choose without guilt, how to listen without being pulled apart, how to exist without constant comparison. It teaches them the difference between being alone and being lonely. The former fills them, the latter drains them, and clarity helps them see the line between the two. There is also clarity in boundaries, not the harsh kind that pushes people away, but the gentle kind that protects energy, time, and peace. In solitude, they learn what their limits truly are. They learn how much noise they can tolerate, how much closeness they can hold, how much space they need to stay emotionally balanced. Most importantly, solitude reveals who they are when no one is watching. And that truth, quiet, unfiltered, unpolished, becomes the foundation of their clarity. It becomes the compass that directs their relationships, their choices, their path forward. It becomes the anchor that keeps them from drifting into lives that do not belong to them. When solitude turns into clarity, it no longer feels like stepping away from the world. It feels like stepping into oneself, a return, a remembering, a softly lit understanding that changes everything without making a sound. There comes a stage when solitude is no longer something a person escapes into or hides behind. It becomes a quiet center they carry within themselves, steady, grounded, unmistakably theirs. This chapter is about that integration, the moment solitude is no longer a place they go, but a way they live. After years of seeking silence to recover, to think, to feel, something begins to shift. The relationship with solitude matures. It becomes woven into the rhythm of their days, not as separation from the world, but as balance within it. They learn how to exist in connection without losing themselves, and how to return to aloneness without feeling disconnected. Integration looks different for everyone, yet carries the same depth. For some, it means learning to create gentle boundaries, simple, clear, compassionate lines that keep their energy intact. They no longer apologize for needing space. They no longer mistake solitude for avoidance. They understand the difference between withdrawing from others and returning to themselves. This awareness changes the way they move through relationships. They show up more intentionally, more present, more steady, because they are no longer running on empty. For others, integration means recognizing that solitude and connection are not opposing forces. They are two halves of the same emotional ecosystem. One restores, the other expands. One quiets, the other warms. They begin to build relationships with people who understand this rhythm, who don't interpret silence as rejection or distance as disinterest. These connections become softer, more breathable, free from the pressure to perform. As they integrate solitude into their everyday life, their nervous system shifts as well. They start to notice when overstimulation appears. They recognize its early signs: tightening shoulders, scattered thoughts, emotional fatigue. Instead of pushing through, they retreat mindfully, even momentarily, letting their inner quiet recalibrate their senses. Solitude becomes a form of emotional hygiene, a way to keep the mind clear and the heart open. Integration also shows up in their attention. They focus differently now, more deeply, more deliberately. They no longer feel pulled in every direction. Their inner quiet acts as a filter, separating what matters from what merely demands their time. They make choices based on alignment rather than expectation. They speak more slowly. They listen more fully. They understand that silence is not empty. It is a space where meaning gathers. In this stage, solitude becomes a companion rather than a cure. It is there in the small rituals, early morning light, a slow walk, a moment of stillness before speaking. These micro moments ground them. They remind them of who they are beneath the noise of everyday life. They also begin to experience connection differently. When the inner world is stable, relationships become less overwhelming. They can love openly without losing their center. They can support others without absorbing their emotional weight. They can be present without erasing their own needs. The fear of being misunderstood begins to soften, replaced by the confidence that the right people will understand their rhythm and the wrong ones will drift away naturally. Integration is not about withdrawing from life. It is about participating with clarity. It is about knowing when to engage and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, when to offer warmth and when to return to stillness. People who integrate solitude do not live on the edges of the world, they live fully inside it. But with an inner anchor that keeps them steady, their quiet center is not a barrier, it is guidance. It is the place they return to for truth, for calm, for the reminder that they do not need to stay in environments that exhaust them. In this stage, solitude is not the retreat it once was, it is the alignment they carry everywhere they go. A quiet center that moves with them, breathes with them, steadies them, a sanctuary no longer found in distance, but in presence. There comes a moment, somewhere near the end of every inner journey, where the world grows quiet enough that you can finally hear yourself breathing again. Not the breath you force, not the breath you shape, but the natural one, the one that has been there since the beginning, patiently waiting for you to notice it. This chapter is that moment, a gentle landing, a soft return, a reminder that solitude was never meant to be an escape from life, but a way back into it. Because if you listen closely, silence is not the sound of nothing, it is the sound of you. Not the you shaped by expectations, not the you performing strength, not the you hiding your cracks, but the you beneath all of that, the one who watches quietly, who feels deeply, who understands instinctively. This chapter isn't meant to explain anything, it's meant to let everything settle, like dust floating back to the floor after a storm, like water becoming clear again once the waves soften, like a trembling heart rediscovering its rhythm. Silence does that. It gives things their place. There is a particular stillness that arrives after all the inner conflicts have been named, after all the hidden rooms have been entered, after all the unspoken fears have been acknowledged. It is not victory. It is not resolution. It is simply space. A space where you realize you are not someone who loves solitude because you are broken. You are someone who loves solitude because that is where your truth breathes. And the truth is this: some people find themselves in crowds, some find themselves in connection, some find themselves in movement, and some, like you, find themselves in quiet. And there is nothing wrong with that. Your need for solitude was never a sign of emotional distance. It was the shape of your inner landscape. Some hearts echo longer, some thoughts travel deeper, some spirits require more space to stretch. You weren't avoiding life, you were preparing yourself to live it more honestly. As you sit with this final stretch of silence, you begin noticing the small shifts. Your shoulders settle lower, your breath lengthens. The noise inside your mind begins to unclench. The world feels less threatening, less rushed, less demanding. Solitude didn't turn you into someone new. It helped you remember who you already were. And isn't that the quietest kind of miracle? To return home without ever packing a bag, to rediscover yourself without losing anything, to feel full without reaching outward. Sometimes healing is not loud, sometimes clarity whispers, sometimes transformation feels like a soft exhale. You start to understand something else too. You don't need to fully withdraw from the world to protect your inner peace. You just need to know where the door to your quiet center is and how to return to it. There will be days when noise surrounds you. There will be moments when people want more than you can give. There will be seasons when your heart feels cluttered again, but now you know the way back. You've memorized the map. You've learned the language of your own silence, and that knowledge stays with you even when life becomes loud again. This chapter is not an ending. It is a reminder, a gentle touch on your shoulder saying, when the world overwhelms you, go back to the place that knows you. Sit with the version of yourself that doesn't need to perform. Let the quiet rebuild you. Solitude is no longer something you run to in desperation. It is a sanctuary you return to with intention, a breathing space, a recalibration, a home. And when you step back into the world, because you will, because you're meant to, you walk differently, more grounded, more aware, more connected to the parts of you that you used to ignore. You carry silence inside you, not as an emptiness, but as a compass. So here, at the end, ask yourself gently, who am I now that the noise has settled? Who have I found in the quiet? What truth rises when everything else falls away? Whatever your answers are, let them be soft, let them be unfinished, let them be honest. Because the self that returns in silence is never a final version, it is a beginning, a quiet one, a truthful one, a deeply human one. And as you close this chapter, you don't walk away from solitude, you walk with it, a quiet center beating steadily inside you. A gentle reminder that you are allowed to rest, allowed to retreat, allowed to feel deeply, allowed to come back to yourself anytime you need. The world may never fully understand the way you move through it, but your silence does, and that is enough.